to move from a resilience to a natural brilliant state.
We're all here to move our Black communities forward.
We think our children have to have the best. It's all about discipline.
How are we going to discipline ourselves so that we're able to save, so that we're able to make good financial decisions?
Recognizing that there's a road ahead if you manage the road in front of you.
The decisions that you're going to be making today in your lives where it comes to money will affect you in the future.
Discipline is one of the things that we often learn, sometimes by our environment, or sometimes we're forced to do it, and sometimes we don't learn it at all.
Stores want to get us in and out and get our money, and that's it. It's a game, so you have to be really wise to the game.
Do you know what it costs to run your home on a monthly basis?
Land acknowledgement. As we gather together, we acknowledge the sacred land on which we reside. It has been a site of human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the territory of the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. The territory was the subject of Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and Confederacy of the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Today, this gathering place is still the home of many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community on this territory. We are also mindful of broken covenants and the need to strive to make right with all our relations. Last but certainly not least, we acknowledge the people of African descent who were brought here against their own will or in search of a safe place to live their lives and raise their children. Reconnaissance des terres. En nous rassemblant, nous reconnaissons la terre sacrée sur laquelle nous résidons. C'est un site d'activité humaine depuis 15 000 ans. Cette terre est le territoire des Premières Nations Huron-Wendat et Petun, les Séniques et plus récemment les Mississaugas de la rivière Crédit. Le territoire était sujet de l'alliance de la ceinture Wampum plat avec cuillère, un accord entre la Confédération Iroquois et Confédération des Ojibwe et des nations alliées à partager et à prendre soin pacifiquement pour les ressources autour des Grands Lacs. Aujourd'hui, ce lieu de rassemblement est toujours le foyer de nombreux peuples autochtones de toute l'île de la Tortue et nous sommes reconnaissants d'avoir la possibilité de travailler dans la communauté sur ce territoire. Nous sommes également conscients des alliances brisées et de la nécessité de nous efforcer de guérir toutes nos relations. Dernier point, mais non le moindre, nous remercions les personnes d'ascendance africaine qui ont été amenées ici contre leur volonté ou à la recherche d'un endroit sûr où vivre leur vie et élever leurs enfants.
This webinar provides illustrative information with respect to the subject matter covered and does not represent an official opinion or position of the Black Business and Professional Association. The BBPA makes no representations, warranties, or guarantees as to assume no responsibility for the content or application of the material contained herein, and especially disclaim all liability for any damages arising out of the use or reference to or lines on such material.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out this beautiful Saturday morning. Loving to see everyone here, and welcome to this another webinar this Black History Month. So happy Black History Month as we go through our financial literacy series. My name is Brian Duarte. I am a board member with the BBPA. I'm also a social venturist where I have a venture fund investing in Black and underrepresented founders in the clean tech space. So that's called Black Tech Capital. And my experience has been as an engineer, as an entrepreneur, and over 30 years in the energy industry. Today, I would like to introduce you to Beverley Allen. Beverley has been passionate about business and investing since she was in her teenage years. At 19 years old, her first job was in an insurance company, Jamaica Mutual Life. as a typist and then as branch administration. She became an insurance advisor in 1986 and an investment advisor in 1988. Her financial services career in Canada spans over 30 years with Desjardins. And then Beverley is going to be introducing more about herself in the presentation today. Today, what we're going to be talking about, the workshop was about understanding the stock market, but we're going to start off a little bit before that. After her intro, she's going to be talking about the money philosophy first, so people get to understand what their money philosophy. It ties in very well with the previous 2 webinars that we did this month. And then she's going to go into some investing one-on-one, talk a little bit about the industry regulations, and then the different products and services available to you. So really excited to hear what Beverley has to say, learning more about investing. I'm sure we're all going to garner so much knowledge and wisdom from what she has there. If you have any questions as we go along through the presentation, put up your hand. When we get an opportunity, we can call upon you. You can unmute yourself and enter in there. Also, you can enter into the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat and asking those questions directly. So you have 2 options to ask questions as we go along. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Beverley.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's a pleasure. And I am grateful for the opportunity to speak on such an auspicious occasion. Financial literacy is very, very important. And I understand not everyone had the passion at a young age or were exposed to the information. And so I've made it my life's work to impart and share knowledge, ideas, whenever I have the opportunity. So thank you. So this morning, thanks everyone who have joined in also. I hope this will be beneficial to you. I realize that folks online will be at different levels. So whatever you get, you might just be filling in the gap, or this information might be entirely new, but I know there will be something for everyone, hopefully. All right, so we're going to start off with my introduction slideshow. And I'll go to my share screen. And I think I'm going to probably need the help again in doing that. Where is my file again? Oops. I'm going to close that. I should have that open. Okay, can you jump in and help me again, please? Thank you.
Yes, of course. So do you have the file open on the document on your computer?
I did not close it before, I don't think. Okay, let me open it again. Yeah. All right, it's open.
Okay, and then you can go ahead and do the share screen and hit the share button.
All right. Okay. Oh, here it is. All right. All right, there we go.
All right, perfect. And then slideshow, the little slideshow button at the bottom.
Oh, here.
Bottom right.
Okay. Okay. So why is not opening up again?
That's okay. That is the cluster control.
All right, I'll do that. There we go. All right, so as I've said before, I'm Beverley Allen. I'm a licensed life and health insurance advisor and a mutual fund advisor. And just this January here, I just got my registered deposit broker credential. I've been doing GICs all along, but I felt that based on the clientele that I'm served, I'm as you can see from my hair, I'm up in that age, and a lot of people my age are looking for security. So being able to offer the best available guaranteed investment rate is very important. So the focus is understanding what my clients' needs are and being able to provide them with the advice and products that meet their needs. And it starts from all different ages. Now, I must say at this time that I am semi-retired. So for younger people just starting out, I can definitely connect you with an advisor who will be able to work with you through your different life cycles, just like my current clients have. Okay. There's different considerations in working with an advisor. And I must add here that the statistics are very clear. Individuals who work with an advisor over their lifetime accumulate substantially more assets and net worth. I don't have the exact statistics here, so I won't mention numbers, but it's a substantial difference between people who work with advisors and who do it alone. So that's a word of advice for you. Okay, so comprehensive personalized investment and insurance advice, one-on-one relationship with a dedicated financial service provider. Wherever you get your advice, make sure that you have these components. And I'm just going to skip through this because this is not what it's about this morning. Okay, so we'll be taking questions, as Brian said, along the way, and as they come up, and at the end, providing time permitted. Okay, so we can stop the screen share now, and I will continue with my talk. I have a booklet. I am going to post the link to that booklet, which it says mutual fund. It's complement of Dynamic Fund Management. Dynamic is one of the best mutual fund companies around. And they have a booklet, it's 36 pages, called Mutual Fund 101, but you could actually just change that to Investing 101, because it gives all the definitions and everything that you will need to know as a novice investor, or even as a seasoned investor, because I have, as I explained to Brian before, seasoned investors not understanding how to read their statements or not understanding what product they have. So there is something here for everyone. Okay. So let's start out by talking about your money philosophy. Okay. And you may want to write things down because these are something that you're going to need to think about and maybe do some more reading and research about. Everyone has a life philosophy, and wrapped up in your life philosophy is your money philosophy, whether you understand it, whether you're conscious of it or not. I became conscious of this maybe around 10 years in as an advisor, because I had that experience of observing people and seeing how different people who became my clients dealt with money. And so if you actually take some time and do some introspection, you're going to quickly determine what your money philosophy is. And I can share a little bit with you about my own journey into this awareness. I'm a person who understands what budgeting is. I operate on a budget, but I never have and never will, because that's not my personality, track every penny. Another money philosophy that I have, and I think I got this from my mother because she was a possibility thinker and she was a woman of faith, is that I always believe that I have the ability to generate money. You have to have that mindset in order to win, regardless of what you invest in or what your occupation is. You can make money at it, right? So with that, I do not have a scarcity mentality. I'm aware of current limitations. However, I do not believe I possess a scarcity mentality, right? You cannot amass wealth if you have a scarcity mentality. So that you will uncover as you delve into your life's philosophy and your money philosophy. Okay. Any question on this or comments or observations?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat, Beverly, but I was looking at some of the stats that you were sharing. You're saying there about the increase from working an advisor, and you're so right. They're talking about a 55 to 60% increase in retirement savings with clients that work with an advisor versus those that don't. 131% increase in savings for an average household that has worked with a financial advisor for over 15 years. So definitely seeing those benefits from working with an advisor. So, love to hear more.
Glad you were able to find that so quickly, Brian. And if you work with somebody like myself, who is very passionate about tax and tax planning, and who has a very creative mind, you will do even better. Because tax considerations has to be part of everything that you do.
So true.
Great, thank you. So we'll move on, if there are no other questions or comments, into the industry, where we are in the industry, financial services industry, and the current regulation. One of my takeaway from the recent changes in the mutual fund and the financial services industry is that people need to get used to paying for or normalize paying for advice. The regulations have changed. So the way the investment industry started out and grew by creating opportunities for everyday folks. That means people who could start with as little as $25 a month or $50 a month. That's the type of clientele I grew my business with. I started out with, because when I started out 37 years ago, I didn't know a lot of people with a lot of money. And the few that I knew that had a lot of money, they wanted to see how I did before they would trust me with their lots of money. And so some would throw me a bone or two by giving me a small amount of money to take care of. And the industry has completely turned on its heel, turned its back, I believe, on investors or the population, the percentage of the population, which surprisingly, 80%, the stats are out, 80% of the population, 80% has less than $50,000 in investable assets. 80. So that means that only 20%, and out of that 20%, half of that 20% have less than 100,000. So the industry has turned its head, turned upside down in pursuit and service of 10% of the population, right? So the services that were once available to average people is no longer, because it's not economically viable for advisors. It's not a business model that's viable anymore to take on clients who are just starting out, or who can just afford put away $50 a month or $100 a month. And so even as most of you know, the bank brokerages won't even talk to you unless you have $500,000. Okay, they're shafting those clients back over. There was a time when they would refer clients with 100,000 or more over to the brokerage side from the banking side. And now they're shuffling those clients back over to the banking side. So you're on your own. Okay. So out of this, I see an opportunity for individuals who want to enter the advice giving, a fee for service. And I see it as the best way to service and grow money is for people to be willing to pay for advice and pay for quality advice. Okay. Whether you're buying a house, and I'm speaking to the Black community now, I'm not speaking, we must normalize paying for advice. I really was recently talked to a young lady. She very ambitious, work hard, earn very decent income. She bought a second property, a condominium, and she had to have a real estate agent. She had a lawyer, and not one of them told her that she could save the HST, it's a brand new condo, HST, by securing a lease for the first year and renting out that property. So she lost $30,000 plus by moving into that condo instead of staying in the condo that she's living in now and renting out the brand new one for a year. For somebody with millions of dollars, 30,000, you know, it's not a big deal if they want to live in their new condo. But she's somebody who is trying. She's trying to build wealth. So throwing 30,000 plus to the government for no good reason doesn't make any sense. She didn't know that. Okay, so we must normalize speaking to professionals and seeking the best people to get advice from. Okay, and so we can move on from, sorry, any questions or comments on this?
So there's a question there in the chat saying, can we offset paying for some advice by using the vast amount of online education the brokerages are providing for free, like TD and Ally? So I guess really, you know, the belief today is you can find everything on the internet and you can search it up and get your answers there. So I guess, you know, what's your comment about going to the internet versus seeking out an advisor? Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the presence of multitude of advice has only brought more confusion. This is not only my position, but is a position of an expert, because the statistics or studies have shown that where there is too many choices, people tend to not make decisions, right? And of course, in the process of making decisions, sometimes we don't think of something. So by actually having an advisor who really is a coach, okay, by having somebody says, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that, this, that, or the other? that is, you know, that is more likely to draw something to your attention. And of course, you can then go and do your research.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing would be too, if you're going online for advice, it'd be very generic. It's meant to cover a multitude of cases, and it doesn't deal with your specifics and your specific situation. Like that example you brought up of that young woman that now owned 2 properties, you know, she had no one guiding her on her specifics and how she could have saved 30,000. I mean, that's not an insubstantial amount of money. So
Exactly.
you know, very, very key point.
All right, so we will move on. How much more time do we have, Brian?
We've got quite a bit left. It's we're not at 10:30 yet, and we have another hour. So yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Bring it on. All right. So we've talked about the industry, and then before we get into the investing specifics, what I'd like to do first is talk about products, because this is where I find that there is a lack of cohesive knowledge and how to read statement. Well, yes, after we talk about products, we talk about how to read statements. Or you know what, I'll do the how to read statements after we talk about, because we're going to deal with some of the definitions. So we'll do it in that order first. So there's a lot of confusion around about the types of accounts and how best to achieve your desired financial outcome. There are some products that are geared toward specific goals and outcomes, and some are more general based on you know, your personal risk tolerance and so forth. Okay, so what I hear coming at me constantly when I'm asking, when people approach me or talk about investing, they will say, I have an investment account. Well, what is it invested in? And they might say, it's in mutual funds. So what type of account is it? Okay, so this is where the confusion is. We have account types, which your account type is going to determine your tax treatment and the tax benefits and what flexibility you have or don't have. So account types in Canada here, we're looking at what we call open account or non-registered account. And those are taxed differently from registered retirement savings plan or RSPs. They're taxed differently than tax-free, which has only been recently, when I say recent, since 2009, we have the tax-free savings or TFSA. And here again, people might say, oh, I have a TFSA. Well, what is your TFSA invested in? The object of the tax-free savings is to make money and not pay any taxes. So if you have the money in a daily interest savings account, especially in the last 10 years, you know, making 0.10%, you're not going to get anywhere with that. Okay, it's tax-free, but you're not making any money. So what's the point? Okay, and then we have, you know, other specialty accounts like registered education savings plan, registered disability savings. This is one that a lot of people are unaware of. And there's good money on the table. I see it as a way for some people who are earning high money to get some of their tax money back. And for those who are not, it's an opportunity, it's a benefit from the government to help your family deal with a family member who has a lower or no earning potential. So those are types of account. There is a new account which might be very, very beneficial to the younger folks on the call. It's the homeowner, a new homeowner savings plan that's just been announced. And I think it's officially coming on board as of April. The companies are now in the process of setting up their systems to accommodate this plan. But it's very interesting because you will be able to put money in specifically toward home ownership and earn money similar to tax-free. It's similar to RSP in that, RRSP, in that you will get a tax deduction, but it will be a powerful supplement because they will allow you to take money from your RRSP as well as this new home ownership savings plan toward the purchase of your first home. Now, unlike taking money from the RRSP, you won't need to put back the money that you withdraw from the home ownership savings plan. So this is brand new. If you're on Facebook, you can follow me on Facebook. I post a lot of fantastic articles from tax expert Jamie Gollenbeck. He's the resident CIBC tax expert, and Tim Sesnick and others. So if you're on, follow me on Instagram and Facebook. I post a lot of these great articles all the time. Okay. So that's it for product types for now. Any question on product types?
I don't see any specific questions. So anyone, again, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat or raise your hand and we can answer them. I did have a question for you, Beverley, around that new homeowner savings plan and the registered disability savings plan, one I didn't even know about. What types of investment vehicles can you use for those? Because, you know, you're mentioning about the TFSA accounts, you know, in terms of where do you put your money. So are there different investment vehicles open that you can apply those savings plans to?
Oh, absolutely. The registered disability savings plan, you have a lot of options. You can invest in guaranteed interest. You can invest in a mutual fund. If you have a discount brokerage account, you can invest in, you know, in stocks. It's quite a lot of choices depending how you set up the account and which institution you set it up with. Okay. Now, there's not a lot of information yet, and although I've read the generals on the new homeowner, I really haven't studied and digested it yet because the product announcements haven't come out on the shelf as yet. So basically, as of now, we have mostly general information, but it's good to be aware of and to watch out as soon as it's open, especially with the prices of homes. You need to take advantage of all the help that's there, or the tax privileges that's there.
Very, very true. And I mean, I see a question from Tylee saying, where can we find more info on the types of accounts? And I think your answer is going to be back to where you were saying before, finding that good advisor to work with.
Absolutely. And the booklet that I'm going to share the link so you can get one, or if you want a printed one, you could contact me and I'll have one mailed to you or something like that. or you can pick it up at my office. But that's a very good, it's like a mini course. Everybody that comes into my office and open a mutual fund account, I give them as their homework. This is your course. Read it up.
So we have Sankofa that's got a question. Go ahead, Sankofa.
Yeah, so I want to thank you, because all knowledge help provide the kind of idea in the mind. Now, one of the things I started doing is I start to study, because it's important to study science of money. And the concept for me was, when is it better strategically to use the TFSA versus the RRSP?
That's a great question. And I would say, if you are in a period of low income, meaning that you have income, let's say when you were contributing, you had income of 60, 70, 75,000 and over, and you're in a low income, you're making 30, 40,000 a year, you can actually strategically start moving money. We call this an exit strategy in my world. You can strategically move money over from the RRSPs, or if you've converted into a RIF. If you're over 60, I would say convert your money, your RSP, into a RIF first, then take the money from the RIF, because there's an extra tax benefit in doing so. Okay, and put it in the tax-free, because future growth will now be earned tax-free. Okay, I have many clients who I've done this for, and they just love me for it, because now they have a pool of money. Let's say you take 6,000 a year, like 1,000 goes to taxes and 5,000 go back into your tax-free. You can see that over 10 years, that's 50,000, and that 50,000 might now be 85 or 100,000. In 10 years, that you can pull out all at once, no tax. Or you can have a tax-free income from that. So that's a great strategy to use. All right.
Thank you for that question. And we have another question in the chat from Denise asking if we can touch a bit on RESP options, in terms of what could we do with the funds before the kids go off to post-secondary.
Or in the accumulation phase, you have quite a bit of options. If you open a self-direct RESP, or just a client, what we call a client name account, that would mean the account would be with one company and you can only use that one company's products. But generally, an investment firm would have enough options that give you a great choice as to how to divide the money and invest it. I've had clients who've done that, and even at the time when their children or child starts school, if they don't need the money for actual tuition, money can still go towards residence, transportation, or some other use. Right? So investing the money to grow it during those years will turn out to be highly beneficial. As a matter of fact, I have one client now, his son is getting married next couple of weeks. But when he was finished school, he had 11,000 left in his RESP, and he decided to keep the money invested. So we withdrew it from the RESP during his last year, during the child's last year, and put it in a TFSA in the daddy's name. with the child as a beneficiary because he said it's his money, he want him to get it regardless. So now he's getting married, and since that time the money has more than doubled. So the 11,000 is worth now 25,000 plus. So now he has that to give to his son.
I mean, all great advice there, because yeah, you know, what do you do if it's not all used? What do you do if the child doesn't decide to go to post-secondary? Again, you know, having the place to go to ask those questions. I see another hand up. Don't have a name, but if you can go ahead and unmute and don't know what's happening there.
Okay.
Okay, while that's there, Wayne has a question, and he apologized first. He in his chat first he called you Debbie, not Beverly. He says you remind him of Debbie Allen. So,
oh dear.
There you go. The question is it better to put your extra money monthly into paying down your mortgage faster, or to take that money and dollar cost average it into some high quality stocks? Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. Now, I firmly believe in having some backup funds, because if the only money that you can spend really, especially in time of emergency, is money that's available to you. And generally speaking, you may have a house with a small mortgage. If you're in a crisis, that's not the time the bank is going to lend you money. So having money set aside that will be available and accessible in case of a need is very important. So if, depending on how much free cash you have to invest, you might divide it and put a portion each month toward the mortgage and a portion to accumulate. That's me, the balanced person. That's how I would go about it. That's what I do.
Okay. Those are all the questions I see at the moment. So why don't we continue on and then come back to any further questions? Mm-hmm.
All right. So then we're going to talk about, we talk about product types. So let's talk about definitions. And I'm going to go and bring up my here. So basically, when you're opening an account, whether it's a mutual fund or a discount brokerage account that you're do-it-yourselfers, you need to have certain understanding so that you're clear as to what you're doing. And again, we start off with the different types of accounts and how they're taxed. And now we talk about specifics toward the investment, like what is a dividend, right? We're going to cover a few of these, and then as we continue the presentation, then more conversation will develop around these. So what's a stock or a share? A share or stock is a fractional ownership of a corporation. Now, with day trading over the last decade or so, it's kind of muddied the water in terms of how you buy, but there's still the philosophy of buying great companies, investing in great companies, and holding it as long as it makes sense. So we call that buy and hold philosophy. Okay, buy and hold philosophy. The most famous investor who uses that philosophy is Warren Buffett. And he's still the wealthiest person who has made his money investing, not by developing something like a Microsoft, but actually he earned his wealth by investing. He's still at the top. Okay, so identifying great companies and investing in those companies and holding as long as it makes sense. And I say as long as it makes sense. Some people would say forever, but I say as long as it makes sense, because sometimes the companies change direction and you might not want to participate. So then that's a time to exit, right? So, or if the industry change and it's no longer has a great outlook. So that's the buy and hold philosophy. One of our great investors in Canada here, Jamaican, many people know, some might not know him, Michael Leachin. He didn't see the need to reinvent the wheel. So he adopted Warren Buffett's philosophy, and he used that philosophy to become a billionaire in his own right. He bought AIC mutual fund company. I think he purchased it for 800,000 or something like that. I don't remember exactly, don't hold me to it. And he sold it to Manulife for $3 billion, right? And as you know, Michael Leachin is now one of the most prolific investors in Jamaica and the Caribbean. And of course, as soon as the ink dried and on his no compete clause, he was back in the mutual fund game here in Canada. So, and it's worked. Okay. So that is, especially for novice investors, that's a great way to go. Don't start going, this would be my advice or my philosophy is, don't go into things that you don't know about or you don't understand. And I think Warren Buffett, he gives the same advice. Invest in what you understand. Invest in companies that make products or sell products that you use, right? So the banks, the railway companies, investment segments, and if you're investing in mutual funds, then invest in funds that invest in those companies. And those are what you would call steady eddies of the investment world. And in those ways, even if the market goes through a deep correction, you hold on to your investments, whether it's individual stocks or in a mutual fund. You're not going to go wrong in the long run, because those are usually the first companies to rebound when the markets start rising. So novice investors, I believe, should start out with things that they can understand, and you can build from there. Okay. So the next one is, how do you open account? Well, we talk about this at the beginning about the financial services industry and the direction things are moving. You can pay for advice and go and open an online brokerage, because your advisor, fee-for-service advisor, would give you a framework, help you develop a framework and help you prioritize, and then you can go and execute on your own with a discount brokerage. On the mutual fund side, you can also have an investment advisor that you pay for advice if you don't meet their minimum investment criteria, or even if you do, you may choose to pay for your advice and have what they call a no fee or no load account. Okay, so those are the ways to go. And so we talk about fee options, discount brokerage. You're completely on your own. You have to know what you're doing. Okay, and for instance, one way you would might open a discount brokerage is if you have an employer and your employer is doing well and you're only allowed to buy, let's say, 2% of your salary through on the stock option plan they offer, but you want to own more shares in the company. So then you can open a discount brokerage firm and buy more shares in the company you work for. That's one way of doing it. That way you already know the company, you're working for them, you know what to do. So and you're having a limited goal for that account. But if you want to play the market, then that's a whole entirely different game. Okay.
So, Beverly, I have a question that came up in the chat that's sort of on you're talking, you know, using those discount brokerages. Naya asks, you know, after sending greetings and peace and peace back to you, Naya, do you have any comments or advice on becoming your own bank? You know, that's, you know, going down a whole other thing, but I thought it might be a segue off of talking on, you know, investing for yourself and using an online discount brokerage. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, becoming your own bank, I first saw that in some videos that popped up on social media over the last year or so, and I've seen less of them. I don't know if the algos are responsible for that, or because the regulators are clamping down on those ads, because some of them are, the general information is good, but the way they did those videos can be misleading. And I've seen where here in Canada, in Ontario, I've seen where the regulators have gone after some of those what they call MGAs, managing general agents, insurance brokerages that have that focus of selling those types of, or almost exclusively selling those kind of plans. So they're doing more auditing to make sure that they're doing proper disclosures and giving clients proper options. Now, as somebody who spent almost all of my working years in the insurance industry, I understand completely the philosophy behind that concept. And it's just 2 days ago, a person I follow on, a very wealthy person I follow on Twitter, he's 43 and he's made a tweet that he finally bought the bullet, time to bite the bullet and got insurance, and he was throwing it out there, what should he get? And my comment was, since I've been in the industry working as an admin, I've seen where the wealthiest families in Toronto bought permanent insurance for all the members of their whole household. And how did I know that? Because I used to get the letters every year that asked for the financial updates every single year. And we had to send a letter that detailed what the dividends were, what the cash value was, the coverage, and so on and so on. So I knew what the Bloombergs and the Bellbergs and all these names, I knew what they were getting. It's a way to preserve wealth. If you're going to take that strategy, just make sure that you have enough liquidity, because unraveling those plans will cost you money in the early years. So it's not as easy as those people make it sound. Okay, that's that's my 2 cents on that subject.
Very much so. Everything looks simple online, but not so in practice.
Exactly, exactly. And again, that's why you need a trusted advisor. Somebody will give you the straight goods, you know, and let you make your decisions. But here are the facts. If you take it, if you like it, if you don't like it, but you know, this is what it is. Yeah. All right. So is there another question on terms of definitions or in the investing world? Is there a particular topic that you would like to know more about before we get into statements or reading your statements?
Yeah, I see Amani has a question here.
Okay.
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, good presentation. Thank you so much for going so slowly, but very clearly.
You're
Sometimes
welcome.
I get confused when I read statements from
Right.
investment, because they have technical terminologies such as operating cost, compensation, trailing commissions. And it shows that there's an amount of trailing commissions that the company that I invest in has received from a third party. And I'm like, okay, who is this third party? Who paid this money on my behalf? Is this a trick? Is this my money? So yeah, it can be a little bit confusing.
That is a great question. That's why I'm glad I've taken this format instead of just spilling off information from a slide presentation, because everybody will learn from this. And this is what I mean about getting to understand what you're doing. Now, so with the mutual fund investing, the money, even though you pay no money out of your pocket, the money has to come from somewhere to run the companies. Those fund managers don't work for free, and all the fancy brochures and statements they send you cost money. So with the mutual fund, they have what they call a management fee, and you don't pay that management fee out of your account. It is charged as a percentage of the entire fund. For instance, if they have 200 million or $1 billion under management in that particular fund, and the management fee is 2%, what that means is that the mutual fund company will take out 2% of the 2 billion or the 200 million, whatever their asset under management is each year. But they don't take the entire 2% at once. They divide it by 12 and take 1/12 of the fee every month. Okay. And so when they annualize it, it may come to slightly more than 2%. So that's why they call it the MER, the management expense ratio. It's as expressed as a percentage of the entire pool of money. So anytime you hear MER, that's what they mean, management expense ratio, and that's the fee that the mutual fund company charges for managing the fund. Okay. Now, part of that MER or management fee covers compensation to the investment dealer, and the investment dealer and the advisor share that part. Okay, so if your MER is 2% for argument's sake, and 1% goes to the investment dealer, then the 1% is what the mutual fund company uses to cover every single expense they have pertaining to that particular fund. Okay, is that clear enough, or do you have any follow-up questions to that, Amani?
No, I think it's helpful. I would just follow up. I think sometimes it might need more personalized, and it's not just a general blank statement. But I think, yeah, theoretically it makes sense. It makes sense why you explain. But I will follow up with you on an individual case by case.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
yes, sounds good. So now their operating cost comes also out of their management fee. It's 2016, the regulators started requiring the investment dealers to show how much they earn from commission, even though that money is not deducted specifically from an individual's account. It's caused more confusion, I think a lot of confusion for clients, because they think that money is being deducted from them, but it's not. In other words, then the fund managers have to earn their keep. So they have to make enough money to cover that MER and give you a competitive return, right? But they do get paid that fee, whether the market's up, down, or going sideways.
Okay, well, thanks for that. I'll go to one question first in the chat and then back to the questions from the audience. Wayne is asking, since we must take some calculated risk to make money, if we can borrow money at under 4% interest, what are your thoughts on using that to invest into stocks?
Okay.
So borrowing money to invest into stocks, I guess, is the basic question.
Okay. Leveraging works, and it has worked. And go back to Michael Lee Chin. I don't know the exact detail of it, but I understood that how he got his big break was he borrowed money from the bank, and that was during high interest rate time. We're talking like 15–16% interest rate. And he borrowed money. I think the story is, and you all can do your research and confirm it, but I believe I was at a seminar and he gave the talk where he borrowed $500,000 and bought shares in Mackenzie Financial when it was $1 a share. And he sold at 16, so you all can calculate how much money he made. $16, and that's where he got the money from to buy AIC.
I mean, yeah, there's opportunity, and and as Wayne pointed out, there is definitely a risk involved in that. And I think that brings us back to what you had said earlier. It's investing into what you understand. So if you understand what you're investing, you understand where that money's going and what the opportunity is. But that there definitely is a risk to that.
Yes, and you have to be prepared, for the ups and downs. And again, don't take your mortgage payments and do that. Or your child's education money. But yeah, but definitely it is an opportunity to make money. And going back to leveraging, as we know, and I'm not in real estate. I'm not licensed to sell real estate. I'm not a mortgage broker. I don't do mortgages. So I'll just make that clear up front. However, what I can say is that home ownership is for average, ordinary working people. Home ownership has been the best way into wealth creation for the simple reason that if you don't have any money right now, and you can accumulate the money for the deposit, for the down payment on a home, the bank will lend you money. If you go to the bank and says, I want to borrow 100,000 to invest in mutual funds or in the stock market, they'll tell you to go take a hike. I mean, they won't tell you that exactly, but you will get the feeling. Right? So you have to, in order to borrow money to invest in the stock market, you have to have pretty good credit and you have to have a solid financial situation.
Right. Melissa has a question.
There's my daughter. She's going to test me now.
No, actually, no. It's actually a comment because, like, you know, inevitably when you're a financial advisor, the conversation always comes back to fees, and well, always. And I want to put this perspective out there. You know, I've been in this like lovely house, my husband's family, in a chalet in Blue Mountain. So I worked with Fab, my mother, for 5.5 years as a financial advisor. Then went over and still in money management, wealth management, but on the venture capital side, right? And I'll never forget, like, so my biggest investor in my fund is a billionaire in Toronto, and we were taking a walk. We have like walking meetings, and he said to me, he's like you are drawing down your management fee, right? Like, so you are pulling your management fee because, like, I'm not sure if you know that if venture capital funds, and we'll talk about this next Saturday. And that is that there's even a management fee that investors pay for investing in a VC fund. And if you're making an angel investment, you're still paying like legal fees and things like that. So anyways, and the fee typically for that venture capital funds charge is 2% of assets under management. It's less confusing to understand because it's just like a simple item. 2% is just like drawn down over whatever the fund manager is managing, and it goes directly to things like legal, like back office, fund administration, audit, and accounting, and possibly paying an associate to do some of the work. That money does get eaten up really fast, but the bigger your fund is, the more money you make. But like I said, I'll go back to when I closed the first round of my fund. Like a little bit over a year ago, and this billionaire taking a walk, and he says to me, "You're taking down your management fee to pay yourself, right, for all this work." And I said, "Oh no, I just want to, like, you know, I want to put as much money as I can towards investing, towards these companies I want to invest in." He's like, "Well, okay, but you're going to have to retroactively take it back." He's like, "You cannot be giving away your labor for free." He's like, "You cannot be doing that. Like, you're the one that's going out there, meeting all these startups, coaching them, investing them. And yes, there'll be upside in terms of the bonus when the companies start to do well, because like some of them will. But you need to like eat and live. So how are you going to do that?" And I was like, "You're right. Like, you're right." And I just come from a world where in the discourse for 90% of the people, there's a distracting conversation around management fees. But, you know, as I start to work with and manage money and take checks from more high net worth people, fees aren't even a conversation that comes on the table. And so I challenge everybody to start to think about the mindset that separates the wealthy from everybody else. And I think a big part of that is the fact that wealthy understand that to do great work, great people need to be compensated for that work, right? And it's clear that that's the mentality in this world. Like, even a friend, for example, who started a company because she calls me every other day for advice or just to rant. So she gave me shares in her company as a thank you, right? Because that's what she grew up believing was you compensate people for their labor. And so I just wanted to throw that idea out there as we start to develop this wealth mindset.
Thanks, Melissa. I mean, that's, I mean, it's back, you're saying the same thing that Beverly's saying, you know, do not do these things necessarily on your own, seek out that great advice and don't be afraid to pay for it, right? I mean, the stats I brought up at the beginning about in terms of working with an advisor, you know, saying you're talking about paying those management fees, right? It's all towards building your wealth. And the statistics show that if you're using that, you know, using those advisors, using those companies, fund managers that are got those expertise that you don't necessarily have, you're going to be much better off than those that aren't using that. So, I mean, great way in talking about the mindset. There's another question for you about Beverly here in the chat. Toll is a student, and he's wondering if there was discount pricing for students who would like to hire an advisor. So, I mean, that's really speaking to, you know, young people just starting off in their investment career, may not have the money up front for an advisor. Even what can you speak to around that? Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I'm grateful for that question, because with the changes, I see where there's an opportunity for even individuals like myself who may not want to be taking on new clients, but I can offer group online coaching, for instance, for a nominal fee, and that would be very helpful. But there certainly is opportunity to be able to get started. But the thing is to get started, accumulate a bit of money, and then you can, once you have a base amount of money accumulated, then, you know, you can get guidance. Guidance becomes available to you. And I mean, there's still opportunity to work with individuals who are starting out, but it's not as accessible as before, because like I said before, seasoned advisor, they're not taking small accounts, because to open a small account, when I say a small account, somebody would just starting out. For instance, I can give you a couple of examples. I have a client right now, she's my wealthiest client. She started out right out of school. A lady I was, you know, working with, when she finished nursing school, she started working in the same hospital, and this lady gave her my number. They're from the same country, so she was looking out for the young lady, and she gave her my number. So you can imagine how long she's been with me. And she took the advice, and my advice generally is not limited to investing or insurance. It's about life. That's the relationship I've built up with my clients, and they trust me. And that's why I still have them 37, 35 years later. You know, and she's one of the wealthiest clients I have, with a net worth of probably over 10 million. She doesn't invest the 10 million, but the advice that I gave her, are the coaching and the knowledge I share with her. She took it upon herself and took the risk to go out and do the things that she needed to do to acquire 10 million. Right? And as speaking to Melissa, she doesn't question me about how much I make off her investment. Petty people do that because they're not seeing the value that they're getting. This lady, she knows the value she gets from me because she's worth 10 million.
I mean, it's great. I mean, it's speaking back to the same thing over and over again, you know, as a community, going out there, seeking that advice, getting that advice, and not being hung up on just the fees. I mean, you want to find an advisor that works with you. Back to the comment about starting off as a student, you touched on it briefly, but if you don't necessarily have the money for an advisor yourself, look at forming an investment group, right? Pooling your resources with others, right? So there's multiple ways to tackle it, but I mean, that key message is making sure that you're paying good people to give you the good advice so that you can accumulate and build wealth. I mean, that's a great story of that. That client of yours that started off as a nursing student and now is worth over $10 million. And that's a classic, not a class, but a direct example of how taking that advice can directly impact and grow your wealth for you. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, so do we want to move on to statements now? Anybody having trouble? Any other individuals on the call having issues with their statements or understanding their statements?
I don't see any questions right now. Why don't we move into that? We've got about another 14 minutes left, so we can touch briefly on that and any other questions people may have. Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's go to the statements. The first thing that you want to understand about your statements is what the numbers mean or what those lines mean, because people call me all the time and they get confused because how much money do I have? Okay. And I always say, just read it line by line. A lot of people are intimidated just by having that statement in their hand, right? And my take on it would be, just because it's an investment statement, you don't need to get flustered. Just take your time and go line by line, one line at a time. Opening, usually the account statements start with your market value, the previous year, for instance, or the previous quarter. So what is your market value? Market value is what your account was worth at the period or the date stated. So your market value on December 31st, 2022, that's you're going to be getting on your statements now if you already have an investment account. That's what you would have gotten if you cashed in the account on that particular day. Okay, so that's market value. Okay, and then of course the investment earnings or deposits, what you earn, or growth would be what you've made. You don't actually physically make the money because it's still in the account, you didn't cash in, but your growth would be your return, dollar value of your return for that year. Okay, so if you had $10,000 and your account is worth $11,000 at the end of the year, it means that you made $1,000, which is equivalent of 10%. And of course, money added during the year, and then your total value as of the closing period. So that's usually the first page of your statement. The statement would then go on. Some of them are quite lengthy. You will get you a summary of your each investment in the account. Okay, assuming you have one fund, let's keep it simple. Assuming you had only one investment in the account, you will see on the following pages following the summary of what you have. So let's say you have a mutual fund account and it's in a dividend fund, it will say XYZ dividend fund, number of shares or number of units. Units and shares are the same thing. Okay, number of shares. You will see a line, another column marking average cost. Okay, your average cost is the amount that you invested plus whatever dividends have been paid out by the investment, whether it's a stock, individual stock, or a mutual fund account over time. That average cost figure is to avoid double taxation, because whenever an investment pays a dividend, they send you a slip. If it's a trust, you will get a T3 slip, or a corporation, you'll get a T5 tax slip, because you have to pay tax on your investment earnings. So they issue you a slip so that you don't pay tax again when you eventually cash in your investment. They add the dividend that have been paid over the years to your initial investment and keep track of that. And that's your average cost. Okay. And of course, then it will show you the current market price as of their closing period. And that's and times the number of shares you have, and that will give you your current market value. But it's really important to understand your average cost. Now, for RRSP, TFSA, for all registered accounts, you might not need to pay too much attention to that average cost, but it does help you understand how much you've made over the years that's been reinvested back in, right? But for non-registered accounts, that means open money that's not registered. It's very, very important, because that's how you track your taxes, right? Eventually, when you cash in your account, that's the figure that they're going to use to calculate your capital gains at the end. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about average cost or dividends or capital gains?
I haven't seen the question yet, but I mean, I'll get the question that's come up first. I mean, and people are getting the message around the advisor. Question from Middle is saying, greetings and thanks for the information session. Do you have any suggestions on where to find a trustworthy advisor? So, how do you go about finding that advisor? And is there an amount of money you would need to save before looking into securing an advisor? So there's two questions, how to find one and what do you need in savings before you get to one?
Right. A good way, which is probably the most common way of finding an advisor, is to ask for referrals for people who've been working with somebody for a long period of time, because that means that that individual has a track record, and they have a track record and a comfort level working with that person. And of course, there are websites such as the professional organizations like the CFP that you can search but again, you don't know that person. I'm not saying that you can't find one of my very, very great clients, a couple who I worked with, still have the wife, the husband passed away. Back in the early 90s, I did an ad on a Christian that time we had phone books. That's how long it was. And I made an ad on the phone book cover, and this couple in Brampton, they called me, and the wife, they're still clients today. The wife is, the husband passed. So you can find advisor that way, or you can ask, people you trust and respect.
And is there an amount that someone should save before going to an advisor?
No, you know why? Because if you're starting out and and there are people who will actually even give you like a free session, even if they are a fee for service. They will give you a free session, and then you can find out how they work and what they charge and so forth. Because what you start with might be very important toward your goal, right? For instance, if your main goal is a home ownership and you're just opening a savings account in the bank and you're not properly funding that towards the goal, then it's not really a goal. So an advisor will help you formulate that goal. One of the interesting things that I've always talked about or find puzzling is sometimes you need somebody who will be honest with you and, kind of just look you in the face and says, well, if that's what you're going to do, you're not going to get there, or it take you forever. Sitting with a young couple and they want to own a home, and then when you says, well, how much per month are you willing to put aside toward that goal? And they will look you in the face and say $50 a month. I mean, you have the budget, you have the income. That's not even realistic. So, if based on your situation, that's all you can set aside, it's a good start. Any start is a start.
It's a good start. Well, I know we only have a couple of minutes left here. And I see another question from Wayne, and I know we're not going to be able to go into all of that, but Wayne is asking about pooling the money. He's asking it both you and yourself, and talking about, should we create a contract between you and your family or friends that you're going to invest in, and should it be a group decision to invest? I mean, there's a lot inside of that we can go on for. I mean, I always say that, yes, if you're going in with a group of people, make sure that you're clear on your values, your goals, where you want to go together. Contracts for sure of some sort, right? I mean, you're dealing for when things go bad. You're hoping it doesn't, but make sure it's clear on who's the roles and responsibilities. But I mean, Wayne, thanks a lot for all your great questions today, but there's a lot to go into. We've only got a couple minutes here left. So thank you very much, Beverley. This was great advice. It was brought up before. You've gone through it very slowly, very clearly. It's been able for people to follow along. I mean, over and over again, the clear message is seek out that good advisor. Ask for references for that good advisor in terms of make sure you're comfortable working with them, but utilize that expertise beyond yourself to grow that wealth, to grow the wealth for yourself and for your family. So, I mean, I think that would be the core message leaving here today. So again, thank you very much, Beverley, for your webinar. We've got some stuff coming up, talking about the sessions coming up for this week and next week. But again, thanks everyone, and we'll take it from there. Wednesday, we've got a day in the life, the Loblaw Companies Limited. So it's going to be talking about that, understanding what it's like inside of that business, what's the operation, and speaking to people in our community, talking about that Loblaw's Companies Limited and what it's like working for there. And then next weekend, we've got Melissa Allen back on again, talking investing for the future. Today, we were talking stocks and TFSAs and traditional financial vehicles. Melissa's going to get into alternative investments, talking about angel investing and venture capital. It's not an area that our community is very much exposed to. It's not an area that that we've understood well. I certainly didn't understand it before I got into the venture capital world myself. So looking forward to that great presentation next weekend on the alternative. So hope to see you all back here, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy this family day long weekend. Enjoy the time with your families. And again, thank you very much, Beverly, and thank you everyone for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Community Spaces, the financial literacy program that speaks and reaches the community. Are we going to be in a better place, or are we going to be still, quote unquote, behind the 8 ball?
Because of the historical disadvantage that our community has, we most times do not have financial role models. Without that, economically and financially speaking, we'll always be at the bottom.
Keep proper books and record, because the data drives the strategy and the strategy drives the profits.
COVID-19 sort of removed a veil. It's really exposed the structural barriers that our communities face.
These last 2 years, where there's been a heightened emphasis on the well-being of Black people, has influenced the influx of funds and opportunities. The time is now. How long is that window going to be open?
We'll see you next week, and don't forget to tell a friend to join us here on Community Space.